All right, good morning, everyone. Today is Wednesday, June 10th. I will call to order this Board of Franklin County Commissioners meeting.
Commissioner Stottlemyre?
Present.
Commissioner Howard?
Present.
Chair Waymeyer?
Present.
Vice Chair Dickinson?
Present.
Commissioner Dunn?
Present.
All right, if you'd all stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance, today's invocation will be led by Sheriff Richards. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to gather here together this morning, and we are humbled to bow before you, and we acknowledge that you're the creator, the giver, and sustainer of life, and we just thank you for the life you've given us here. I thank you for the men and women that serve this county and that choose to do so in an honorable way. And I just pray that your blessing and guidance would be over this meeting today, that your desire and your will would be in everything that is said and done here today. I ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. Thanks, Jeff.
All right, do we have any correspondence or organizational business?
No, sir.
All right. That brings us to public comment. A citizen desiring to speak on an item that's not on the agenda may do so at this time. Discussion is limited to 5 minutes, and the commission will not take action or discuss items. This is our turn to listen. Discussion should be limited to matters of county commission business, and public comment is not permitted in regards to personnel matters or on pending legal matters. Items introduced under public comment may become agenda items at a later date.
Our first one is Terry Barnes. Just a reminder to those public commenting, come up to the podium and state your name and your address.
Alrighty, my name's Terry M. Barnes. I live at 3159 Nebraska Road, and this is my first commissioner meeting. Probably won't be the last because I am retired now. So, my question that I addressed to Mr. Lee over here, I've lived at 3159 Nebraska Road all my entire life of 61 years. My parents and grandparents lived in the same area. The house that I'm living in is where my grandparents were. As I've brought a documentation here, the right-of-way for city service, which is now Southern Star, was dated back in 1945, signed by Bid and Edna Barnes. But the reason why I'm here, I just wanted to give you a little history of my family. Is back in my youth, I had horses and I had a dirt bike. And I would go down to a location down at the Hollows. I know you know because your husband or your dad lived over there where Jason lives now. Okay, that was my stomping grounds. That was where I grew up. And for 38 years, I've been a UPS driver, and I'm retired, so now I'm wanting to go back to those happy days. Okay. I know why the gates are up. I don't need to be lectured. I run off many people, from dumping trash to people doing illicit drugs. I was an advocate for law and order, still am. Okay. As I was purchased a four-wheeler, I decided, well, I'm going to go down through there. One day they had both gates open, and I proceeded to go down there. The fork in the road down there, I just sat there for probably 10 minutes reminiscing of my childhood. My daughter should have a right to go down there. I pay taxes. We don't go down there tearing up fields. We don't go down there and hunt, even though I have a concealed carry permit. I want her to enjoy what I enjoyed in my youth. It was brought to my attention that I need to call Mr. Lee. I did. He declined me getting a key. I stated, well, I don't know why or how come when you have numerous people that I'm aware of that have keys to go hunt and don't own a bit of ground down there. I had the county print out. I have 8 landowners down here, from what I could gather with knowledge of that area, that own land down there. And I'm an advocate for people, these people here, to make sure, I'm gonna take care and drive down the road. My question is, if that's gonna be locked up, I don't expect a road grader to go down there and maintain those roads if I don't have access to it, okay? I told Mr. Lee that, he works for me, a taxpayer. He said, no, I don't work for you, I work for the county. Well, who is the county? The taxpayers. And that's me. So I didn't like that coming off. He's a public servant, just like, Sheriff Richards back there. I don't mean to be arrogant about anything, but I command respect. And I would like to know, I guess you're the county attorney, I would like to have papers drawn up if you could provide that for me on a timely basis, and I want to look them over and see how they can do all that. I understand why they done it. I seen it. Had a car stolen years ago, back when I was 18 years old. It was shot up down there on Memorial Day weekend. Larry Oak shot it up. I know exactly where it's at because I know that like the palm of my hand down there.
You're down to 1 minute.
I'm done.
1 minute. You have a
Yeah.
minute. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's all I need to know, but I want to know why and how come. Why I'm denied access. Why? Is there two locks? There's two locks there. I want Nevada Terrace, Neosho Road, there's one on each side of Nevada Terrace, okay? So I think you'd want somebody like me, neighborhood watch, I've got people down there before, I'll catch them again and I'll run them off. That's what I'm getting at. I'm not down there to just tear stuff up. But I don't like to be, I'm not a gated community. I live down a no outlet road as well. I guess I'll just put up a gate and a padlock, if that's what you want. If you're gonna use it that way, saying, well, you're just landowners have access to it. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next one is James Wallace.
James Wallace, 2447 Nebraska Road. I subscribe to the email notice that when you're having meetings and study sessions, and I noticed that there were quite a few study sessions that were canceled. I just wondered if we get a break in our taxes because of this, or we keep paying taxes, but you cancel study sessions? I don't understand that. Also wanted to complain about, I'm not sure if the county maintains the grass on this property that mows around the annex, but whoever did shot grass on some of the cars that are parked in the parking lot. I don't understand why they can't blow the grass the other way when they mow and take into consideration people park their cars alongside the grass. And the last thing I want to talk about is the boom mower that cuts the trees along the right-of-ways. I don't understand. They do a horrible job. And when I saw them on Kingman Road, there was a tractor following the boom mower. I'm not sure what his function is, but it looked like a waste of money. And they do such a terrible job cutting brush. You could do a lot better with a couple of chainsaws and people on foot. That's all I got. Thanks.
Joe Ferguson.
Joe Ferguson, 3335 Rock Creek Road, Ottawa, Kansas, 66067. In regards to what Mr. Barnes said, I would hope that from your level on down through all the county employees that everybody understands they work for the constituents. All of you do. We pay taxes, and I'm not going to beat a dead horse, but that's the way leadership, if you put that word out to the people, then they should put it out to their people and everybody live by it. Another thing I want to bring up is I know you've been dealing with the COVID issue, but a long time ago I talked to you, Commissioner Howard, I talked to you, Commissioner Dickerson, and I talked to Derek. And I mentioned to you that I felt that the county ditches are really bad throughout the county. Years ago, back in the 1970s, our ditches were cleaned out. Well, they're mostly full throughout the county. We need to have a ditch cleanout program similar to your chip and seal program where you do so many miles per district per year. That's a good use of taxpayer money. Then if we have a flood, like the 500-year flood we had, we probably won't see it again. But if we do, the water will have a place to go. I have seen no study sessions on this. That would have been a good thing to maybe do study sessions during this COVID deal where you guys could have done Zoom meetings and discussed how you could get these ditch clean-out program going. Don't forget issues like that. Take care of the taxpayers. Thank you.
Brian Webster.
Morning. Brian Webster, 1108 Osborne Road, Pomona, Kansas. I'm doing a follow-up on June 3rd's meeting to make sure everybody has the contract that was issued to me from the Superintendent of Roads and Bridges. Does everyone have a contract like this? Don?
You received it in your email last week attached to the consent agenda.
I can't hear you very well. I'm sorry.
Did you tell him what I said?
She did.
Yeah, he knows.
I
what
could
you
hear
said.
her.
Did you receive the contract?
I know, yeah.
Yes, we've all got it, and we all got it emailed to us, yes.
Ryan? Roy? Roy? Thank you.
That's it.
All right. All right. Brings us to our consent agenda, which today would include tax change orders in the amount of $73.30 and minutes from our June 3rd meeting to be considered. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Stottlemyre?
Yes.
Commissioner Howard?
Yes.
Commissioner Dickinson?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn?
Yes.
Chair Waymeyer?
Yes. Items of business, first of which would be consider awarding the Iowa Terrace Bridge Replacement Project to L. Underwood LLC in the amount of $87,967.88.
Commissioners, as you know, last August, we had a pipe on Iowa Terrace collapse. It was a 10-foot by 14-foot squash pipe that collapsed during one of the storms that we had last year. And we have been working since then to get that replaced. We contracted with CFS engineers to design a replacement structure, and we worked with the adjoining landowners to acquire easements in order to facilitate the construction of that. CFS is recommending replacing the 10 by 14 squash pipe with two 120-inch by 100-foot corrugated steel pipes. These new pipes should have a lifespan of approximately 40 years if the soil conditions and the like are appropriate. That's according to a 2008 study by the Missouri Department of Transportation. On May 13th, you all approved soliciting bids for this project, and the bids were opened last Friday at 10 a.m. Just outside the clerk's office. We received 3 bids, and for that, an L. Underwood LLC, I believe they're out of Williamsburg, was the lowest responsible bid. And so what I hope for is a motion awarding that project to L. Underwood in the amount of $87,967.88. I think it's important to note that the engineer's estimate for this project was just under $200,000, and the bids range from the low bid of $87,967 to almost $176,000. So there was quite a spread in the bids. Most of that was related to the cost of the pipe. Underwood must have a good source for that. So I feel really good about the cost, a lot less than I was anticipating, which is a good thing because we certainly have other needs that need to be met. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I don't really have a question. I just was shocked at the difference in the bids. This is a huge difference in the low bid compared to the other two bids. But the one that really kind of shocks me is the engineer's estimate and how much under their estimate this bid is. Was their estimate using these two pipes? I think we talked about something, didn't the one time they were talking about doing it different and we went to something. Is this still the engineer's estimate?
Yes, we had originally discussed putting a box culvert in there, and that was going to be in the 250 to 300 range, if I recall correctly. And we asked them to look at other recommendations that would work similarly to the box culvert. And so they came back with these two large diameter pipes with the additional length to be able to carry that water. And their price all along was in that 200 ballpark is what I was budgeting for. It's not unusual to have a bid like this where you have one that comes in way under it. I've seen it many times over the years. Sometimes they're clustered up real close in percentages. This one happened to be, considerably less. We made sure that Underwood, we checked their numbers. We visited with them. They were confident in their ability to perform at the bid price.
You said you thought they were from the Williamsburg area?
I believe so. I've got
The second one is, but I've never heard of the one that.
Lynn Underwood is the owner.
Old 50.
And the CFS, they took a look at this as well, and they're recommending moving forward with Underwood as well.
They're bonded?
Yes.
Something we
They-
Is this correct, that it's going to be 100 feet long?
Yes.
Where the one that you're taking out is only 14 feet
No,
long?
the 10 by 14 was the shape of the
Pipe?
squash pipe. So it was 10 feet high and 14 feet wide. I'm not sure what the length of it was, but
Oh.
this will be considerably longer than what was there.
We also looked at other options. We've had this before us before, and we looked at the price of a bridge,
Yep.
box culvert structure, and this is
Yes, sir.
considerably less. And
And we should get similar performance.
price to life is probably a better value for this.
Yes, definitely so.
All right, any other questions for David? Would anyone like to make a motion to accept the proposal from, nope, wrong one. Anyone like to make a motion to affirm the Iowa Terrace Bridge Replacement Project to L. Underwood LLC in the amount of $87,967.88?
I'll make a motion to accept that bid.
All right, is there a second?
Second it.
Commissioner Howard?
Yes.
Commissioner Dickinson? Commissioner Dunn?
Yes.
Commissioner Stottlemyre?
Yes.
Chair Wademeyer?
Yes. All right. Our second item of business is to consider approving the proposal for architectural services on the annex remodel project. Good morning, Brandon.
We've been discussing for a while now the remodel project for Suite 1 and 2 here at the Annex. Our next step for getting that project accomplished is to finish out some of our architectural drawings. We're going to need MEP drawings as well. Falk Architects can cover both of those. for us. The fee for the architectural drawings is $6,000, and the fee for the MEP drawings is an additional $6,000. So a total of $12,000. That will get all of our drawings completed and done so that we can put this project out to bid and start getting contractors in to look at that project.
Give you a little background on this. We had a very basic drawing put together by a local architect, but what we found when we had contractors come in was that it didn't have the detail necessary to really be helpful to them. There were so many unknowns based on the drawing that we currently have that they couldn't even give us a 30,000 foot price. And so it was recommended that we work with someone who can give us a very detailed drawing. Mr. Falk comes highly recommended, competitive price, and so this is really the next step in accomplishing the remodel. This is something that we've discussed with the board numerous times. If you walk into Suite 1 and 2, which is what we're looking at, there is a ton of wasted space in there. The purpose of the remodel would be to make better use of that. We need more space for my staff at the county, and so this obviously doesn't commit us to the full project. This just puts us in a position to where we can bring contractors in, have them review the plans, and give us accurate bids. I would tell you this is an expense that we have budgeted for. We've done numerous things to prepare ourselves for this. You will recall that we leased Suite 1 and 2 to Advent Health for $90,000. So that right there is a huge shot in the arm, money we wouldn't have otherwise had for this project. I've told you recently, Janet and I are working with our financial advisor on refinancing some debt. And the debt that we are refinancing is paid out of the annex fund, and we anticipate that it's going to result in around $30,000 of annual savings out of the annex fund. So the revenue we receive from the tenants in this building pays the bonds on the new juvenile detention center. We refinance it, we save 30 grand, and so finding the revenue for this isn't a problem at all. Additionally, in talking with Jody as well as the county appraiser, people did a great job of making their tax payments last month. And so revenue-wise, we're not hurting at the moment. Home sales in the month of May were good, and we have not seen a decrease in value yet. And so at this point, and this is a marathon, and I still maintain we've got a long ways to go, but at this point, I don't know that at the county level we've seen anything resulting from COVID that has dramatically affected us financially. So I say all of that because I can appreciate that this is a project, but I do, at this point, I don't see any reason why we can't move forward with it, at least this step, so that we will be in a position when the board is comfortable to take the next step. So.
I was actually glad to see this on the agenda today because after last week's meeting, I thought, oh shoot, I should have asked, because I think we need to move forward with that because things are going on and we need to find out what we're going to do with that space. So I was glad to see that on the agenda.
Well, and the other thing I'll mention, and Paul's here today, and we can talk about this as well during staff reports, but as we've discussed, we would have space in a remodel to house Paul Bean with FCDC. What that could do is, so FCDC is currently paying rent to the chamber. They're paying for half of a staff member along with the chamber, have numerous expenses wrapped up in their current arrangement. by offering Paul space as well as part-time use of county staff, we could save FCDC around $30,000 to $35,000, which FCDC, as you know, is funded a third from the county, a third from the city, and then a third from private funds. But no bigger than their budget is, that's a huge savings for them. And at their last meeting, the board actually voted to accept the county's offer. And so FCDC has agreed to allow Paul to house with the county if and when the remodel is completed. And so great amount of savings there, a lot of efficiency, a lot of reasons why that makes complete sense. But I think Paul's also kind of anxiously watching our progress on this project. That would be another benefit for us as well as FCDC. So. Any questions for Brandon and I before we ask for a motion?
Just one question. I'm surprised we got several architects in town that I would think could have had the expertise to give you the same details and stuff like that. So I was a little surprised went outside of town to get an architect. So
And
Right now, we just have the one architect that's actually licensed, would be Doug. And
just Doug.
and these are mechanical, electrical, and engineering, which are kind of subset specialties.
yeah, we tried to use Doug. To my knowledge, Doug is the only one that can, and we tried to use him, and I'm not fluent in the trades, but my understanding is he just didn't have the expertise to do what we needed him to do, so.
Kyle Trendle, who purchased the firm out here, I forget what it used to be, but he's not licensed, and you have to hold a license for commercial, to stamp commercial work, and so.
Okay.
All righty. Any questions for?
Is the floor plan going to stay basically the same, and we're just getting the expertise on the mechanical part of it?
Basically the same as the drawing that you have seen, yes. It'll be dramatically different than what is there now, just because, but yes, you've seen the, yeah, absolutely.
These are required for obtaining a building permit. Then also, as you said, they'll provide specifications, so when we go to bid, one guy may bid a low efficient, Chinese-made piece of junk HVAC unit, and one may, a Carrier or something like that made down in Wichita, high quality, good efficiency. That way we have apples to apples comparison, and then also, because they are stamped and designed, they'll meet city codes requirements, so we're not, they're safe, they do what they're supposed to, All right, is there a motion to accept the proposal from Falk Architects in the amount of $12,000 for the annex remodel project?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Dickinson?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn?
Yes.
Commissioner Stottlemyre?
Yes.
Commissioner Howard?
Yes.
Chair Waitmeyer.
Yes. All right, thanks, Brandon. Third item of business is to consider adding licensed practical nurse, LPN, to the Franklin County pay plan.
Good morning, Commission.
Morning.
As we open back up the health department, as we continue with our COVID response, we're seeing that some of the resources we had are being reallocated to what jobs they were doing before. For example, accreditation, something that we spent quite a bit of money on in the health department that needs to be focused on. With that, there are monies out there to support COVID response employees. And with that, we've looked at what we need, and as we open back up, one of the big things we need is education. We need to be out. Jennifer and myself have been touring a few establishments that are opening back up, doing that stuff. But with that, we're also looking at a month from now, our busy time, depending on what happens with schools, depending on what happens with a lot of the spring or fall shots and vaccines that we have to give, we're going to be inundated. So with that, we have evaluated what we have in our pay plan cost-wise, and we don't need to hire more nurses or RNs, registered nurses. We can hire LPNs to do the jobs that we need. Where we run into a problem is we don't have an LPN position in our pay plan. So what I'm asking for today is we're looking to hire 2 part-time LPNs that will be involved in the COVID response. And that might be something as much as they're backfilling our nurses while they're handling things that they have expertise in, but allowing us to continue to do the shots and meet the requirements for some of that supplementary funding from our disaster to help pay for that. We also have part-time salaries budgeted, so we do have a little bit of a cushion there if we don't get complete funding for these individuals. So, as I said, education, contact tracing, as we continue to see the openings, we continue to see it, we're seeing more and more positives. We're having to do more tracing. And so far we've been successful, but with the opening back up, I have a feeling we're going to be spending more time on that. So basically what I'm asking for today is the commission to approve adding an LPN into the pay grade for a grade 22. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
And I will have Nick come back up during staff reports to talk specifically about COVID-19. So if you have questions about that, let's wait until staff reports.
Well, questions, do you consider, will you be considering this to be a temporary?
Yes, this is going to be a temporary as long as we can get the funding from the federal government, the disaster, and as long as we, until this kind of fades out or we can not inundate ourselves. So it's not going to be a full-time or long-term, but I do see it being as long as we have COVID response going on, we're going to need additional help.
Are nurses available?
And this is what I've been told, what I've worked with, this is available for us to have with the hours we've used on the trailer and the monies that are available, we should be able to almost fully fund these. Now, I'm not throwing this out as a guarantee. That's why I said there are part-time budgets in the health department budget for part-timers. So we should be able to, if this falls through, not go into the red. We should be able
Not
to
money
fund.
available, but are there people available? I mean, are there nurses out there that need a job?
We hope so. And what we're hoping for is we look for people that have been retired that want to be able to work 20 hours a week and be involved in something. You know, we're probably going to be pretty stringent on what we hire. I don't want to go hire somebody that's working in a COVID ward and start bringing them into our health department. So we're going to be looking at what this position means, and truly it's going to be fluid. It's going to be, as we grow with it, what is it, what do we need, and how's it going to work out? So kind of walking into, it's like with COVID response, we're walking into it a little uneducated on what we need, but we will get through it and have the right people.
Questions for Nick before we look for a motion? All right. An affirmative motion in support of this item would read as follows. I motion to approve adding licensed practical nurse to the Franklin County pay plan in grade 22.
Make that motion.
Second?
Second.
Commissioner Dunn?
Yes.
Commissioner Stottlemyre?
Yes.
Commissioner Howard?
Yes.
Commissioner Dickinson?
Yes.
Chair Waymeyer?
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. All right, this brings us to staff reports. Let's start off with Derek.
I think the first thing I'll address is Mr. Barnes's public comment about road access. I'm not going to draft anything up because there's already documentation, and David has literally got it next to him that sets out the situation here. We don't have an access to give Mr. Barnes or any other citizen regarding these roads. The county vacated portions on both sides of that road, and it is now owned by the landowners. We can't give legal access to something that we don't own, and that is what we would be doing by quote-unquote giving him a key. Like we don't have the right to do that. This is an arrangement that originally started, I believe, in 2003, and it was later to...
When the discussion started.
Okay, and then I think was ratified again in 2013, is that right?
The discussions with the landowners in that area started sometime in the summer of 2002, according to what records I can find. There were lots of public meetings associated with that, with the landowners in the area, concerned about trespassing and trash and those sorts of things. The landowners were looking for a solution and came to the county to help find a solution. The county, one of the things that the folks at that time wanted to do was to vacate those roads, those minimum maintenance roads down into the hollows, and then turn that over to the landowners for them to provide their own maintenance and security and however they wanted to handle it, and we would step out of it completely. The landowners weren't in favor of that because they lost the ability in a vacation. They would own it, they would be responsible for the maintenance. They didn't want to lose having the county to be able to come in once or twice a year to make the roads passable and take care of any down trees and that sort of thing that occurs on those roads from time to time. So what they did, the director at that time must have reached out to some adjoining counties to find out how they handle those situations. They found a solution with Douglas County, who had a policy at that time. I don't know if they still do. I haven't researched it, but they had a policy where they would gate these minimum maintenance roads to help the landowners control that access. It helped to make sure that those that didn't have business in that area from going down there to keep people throwing trash and that sort of thing. And so that's ultimately what the county chose to do. They passed a resolution in January of 2003 that vacated very small pieces of ground between the, what road is that? I always forget. Nevada Terrace. So the right-of-way between Nevada Terrace, it's got, I don't know, 60, 70, 80 feet, whatever it is. And then where Neosho Road tied into that right-of-way that tied into the Nevada Terrace right-of-way, they vacated a small piece of the Neosho Road right-of-way. And so when we vacate right-of-way, just like we do recently, we vacated a minimum maintenance road where a landowner owned on both sides. When we vacate it, essentially, well, not essentially, the landowner on each side, they split that right-of-way. So it becomes their property, not the county's. And that's what they did here as a solution to be able to install the gates and control that access. The county does have a key to be able to open those gates and perform maintenance. And then the landowners in that area, they also have keys. What they do with those keys, have no control over that. And so, it's not our land to be able to allow somebody, a third party to access that land.
I would tell you, I would not recommend to the board that we make a similar agreement today. I don't like what we did then. In the last 5 or so years, when we've done something like this, we vacated the road entirely. and turned all of it back over to the landowners. That, to me, is the appropriate mechanism. But back then, for whatever reason, because I guess we were trying to accommodate those landowners, we basically just vacated the strip of land that the gate sits on. So we're still accessing, or we have an easement and are still maintaining that minimum maintenance, but we don't have legal right to the gate or the land that it sits on. And so, but we've looked at it. It is a binding legal agreement, and so that's where we're at with this.
I would totally agree with Derek. I would not do that today.
Sure.
I think it creates, this is the first time this particular issue has come up, but there are other things that have occurred over the years that make it difficult for us to do what we need to do. I would have pushed to vacate the roads and let the landowners handle it however they want to. I understand trying to keep people, in fact, I think we're picking up trash in front of the gate today that somebody dumped out there. If the gate weren't closed, they would have gone further back in and dumped it there. So I get that, but I wouldn't, you'll not hear me recommend that we go through this process again.
Can I comment?
No, this isn't a public comment time. I'm sorry. We can get you next time. Okay, so, no, I don't think it's ideal, but it was before all of us, and it was a very public process, and that's somehow what they came up with, so. All right.
We are currently scheduled to have budget discussions Monday and Tuesday of next week. As we have said numerous times throughout this process, primarily due to the threat posed by COVID-19 and the financial uncertainty surrounding it, we have asked department heads and elected officials to stay flat. As I just said earlier, thus far, we haven't received any. Thus far, our finances still look okay, but there's still a lot of road ahead of us. And so our budget is largely the same as it was last year. We still have our pay plan in place, so you would see increases to the salary and benefits lines. We've worked with staff on budgeting some things more efficiently based on historical expenses. But in terms of, in a normal budget year, we have a lot of requests for increases, and, Janet and I cull through a lot of those, but a lot of them do come to the board, and that's really the meat of the budget discussions. We don't have that this year. I've spoken to one of you who's expressed desire to, or asked the question anyway, do we really need to get together for 2 full days to go through budgets that are the same as last year? I've spoke with Janet about it. Lord knows her and I are busy enough right now between COVID and election stuff on her plate. We don't see the need to sit down for 2 full days. My question and to the board is, so her and I are getting together today, and we'll spend as long as it takes. I don't think it's going to take long. We're going to put together a management summary of what few changes there are. If we do that and give that to you along with the full budgets, and then we have our regular study session Monday, where we just answer any questions that you have and hit a few of the high points of the budget, would that suffice for you instead of doing 2 days of meetings where I bring in all of my staff? And before you answer that, I want to remind you, this is not our public hearing. To pass a budget, you have to open up a public meeting. You have to allow the public the opportunity to comment. We always do that in August. That's kind of the final phase of the budget before you actually approve the budget. What I'm talking about, this is really just for you to give staff guidance on what you would like to see, but we've already discussed, given where we're at with COVID, that we're just trying to stay flat. So what are your thoughts on that? Having our regular study session Monday, but just targeting specific questions and doing more of an overview.
If I could just add really fast, we have the binders all ready for you guys. We're finalizing the documents that go in them, but the binders are ready for you guys. And so we would still give you what you receive every year, which is the large binder with all the dividers that have each department and itemized budgets for each department. So you would still have all of the documents and be able to review them all. But as Derek said, that other than personnel changes for the increase in accordance with our pay plan, there really is no changes. And I've been going through all those, and as Derek said, we'll go over those today. So.
Those binders have numbers that compare, in comparison years, compare.
Oh, absolutely.
And then
Yes.
are the binders available before next Monday that we could
Yes,
review
so
them?
we're, like I said, we're finalizing the documents that are in them, and I have most of them printed already because, as Derek said, there are no changes other than personnel numbers, so there's not really anything for us major to discuss on them other than just for us to put our eyes on the personnel numbers and for Derek and I to agree that these look reasonable for what we're projecting. So most of them are already printed and ready to go, and Derek and I feel like we could have them ready for you probably Thursday night or for pickup Friday morning.
I'm not available on Tuesday, so there you go. Yeah, I'm fine with that. We did that with the community partners. You know, yeah, they can come talk, but really, we're not going to, you know, at this point, make any huge decisions because we don't know for sure what we're going to be looking at.
Do the same work, study it and go through it just at home and on our own time. In the 9 budgets I've set through, I've never seen a department or anybody come to us and say, I want less money, I want to cut back, this is how I want to do it. It's always time to discuss, new initiatives, new spending, things like that. There's no appetite for that this year. So, I mean, really the part you're cutting out is the opportunity to increase or grow your county government, which.
I think that's absolutely true, Colt. And, as reflected here today, I mean, you have a number of department heads here today, and any of your department heads are, ready and willing to come in at any time and meet with you at any normal meeting. So after you guys review, if you find anything that you want to discuss with them, you certainly could ask Derek to get them here at a meeting for you to discuss with them.
To me, essentially, all we would be doing is affirming our commitment to work within the parameters of what we did last year, so, and not grow, so.
I think at this point, if we can keep what they had last year, we'll be doing good. So, yeah.
Well, I'll just put out there that I am the commissioner that contacted Derek about this. I didn't see why we would need to do this, and I didn't feel that we did the community partners because they stayed flat. And actually got more cases probably now in the county than we did when we made the decision to not meet with the community partners. So, I contacted Derek about this and we talked about it, so that's where I stand. I don't, like I said, we can go over it ourselves. Most of us have been through several of these, and I think it'll work fine and without having to bring everybody together for no reason, really.
Yeah, we'll still scrutinize it and go through every line. There's just no chance we're gonna grow it.
And like Derek said, it's not the public hearing. Even though we don't get very many people, last year I think our public hearing took 12 minutes, or no, 12 seconds or something. There was no one here, but anyway, we still will have to go through all that process too.
Well, then what we'll do is Janet and I will shoot to have those budget books available by Friday morning. If that's not going to happen, I will let you know, but I can't fathom that it won't, and we'll just make them available. You tell us, would you rather me bring them down to Sari's office or have Janet just keep them in the clerk's office? Where would you like to pick them up at?
Clerk's office is fine with me.
Yeah, that's.
Okay, then Janet, when we're finished, we'll keep them. And then we're still early in the budget process. If we meet on Monday, and I don't anticipate any issues, but if there are issues, questions, concerns, there's nothing precluding us from bringing department heads in. I mean, that can look any way you want. I'm very confident that your questions are going to be minimal, just given the nature of the budget this year. So,
I'd be in favor of that kind of format, just highlights in the study session.
okay.
I think the city is pretty much doing the same thing, the city of Ottawa. They're basically like last year's budget's this year's budget, you know?
COVID-19, I'll let Nick talk about this a little more. And you know, we've said all along, this is going to be a marathon. We have 8 new positives just today, which is our most substantial increase since this began. Obviously, you know, we're going to discuss details for HIPAA reasons, but we have seen an increase. And some of that is to be expected. You relax restrictions, then you start having people gather, you start seeing more transmission of the disease. And so Nick and his staff are working very hard as we speak on contact tracing and doing what we can, but certainly that's a situation that we're going to watch very closely. And I've said it all along, and it's not going to be fun if it happens, but you know, if we start seeing mass outbreaks of this, then it's entirely possible that we have to start imposing restrictions again. There is not a person on my team or that I am aware of in the county government that wants to do that. But we have got to balance the health and safety of our people with the economic well-being of our people. And so we're keeping a close eye on that. Nick, with that, if you want to come up and address the board.
As Derek said, we have 8 new positives in the county. What we saw was the last couple weeks, the ones with positives we had were asymptomatic. They had no symptoms. 10 of the 14 active cases we have right now are experiencing symptoms, and that's why a lot of them have been tested. We are doing a lot of contact tracing, a lot of testing, and trying to stay out in front of it. One of the big things that we're doing is, as I said earlier, and why we're wanting to hire 2 more people, is we're getting a lot of phone calls from people about opening up. The thing we're running into is our nursing facilities, for one, have a push to start letting visitors in to see their family. With that, the state's guidance is do what your public health says to do. So it puts Dr. Ransom, myself, and my staff in kind of a catch-22 because we're not getting a lot of guidance from the state. The state's pushing them to come to us. So we started having conversations in Zoom meetings yesterday with our nursing facilities. And I will tell you, they've done a tremendously good job throughout this, keeping their people safe, keeping the public out. But at a time, we're going to have to figure out how to do it. So I have all of their reopening plans. Dr. Ransom and I will sit down tomorrow, go through those. We have another conference call Friday to look at what that's going to look like and hopefully get some kind of consensus across the board throughout it, what we expect, what it looks like, and how that's going to happen. We expected that we would see some positive cases as soon as we went to phase 3. Dr. Ransom continues to say when you're out in public, when you're doing these events, if you're going to be in close quarters, masks have been proven to help. You know, if the positive cases that are wearing masks greatly decreases the chance of the spread of that. So we're going to continue to push that on that side. We did start doing first responder testing last week, and I think to date we've tested about 20-some responders which have been good. We've seen no positive cases, and we've seen no antibodies either. So that means we have nobody that's been exposed in our first responders that have been tested. So those are positive things. On the other side, we are seeing. But with the new cases coming out, I think this is going to be I know this is the biggest jump we've had since the start of our response to COVID. But I also say we're testing a lot more people than we were. And that's one of the questions I had yesterday on the phone from one of our citizens was, why are we seeing more positives? When we first started this response, we would assume people were positive. We would do presumptive positives. Now we have that ability to test. So if one person has it, we may test 15 or 20 people. You look at our negatives, we're over 1,300 people that we've tested. And with we're just at over 40 positive cases. So our ratio is not horrible, but we are testing a lot more people, so we're going to find them. You look at the amount of people that go into the hospital for elective procedures. A couple of our positives have came from that. The asymptomatic ones have went in to have a procedure, and then they're caught with the saliva test or the test that's done at the hospital. So as a partnership and as everything, we're working really well. Our ESF 8 meeting, which involves admin health department, emergency management, EMS, we meet once a week and are really trying to fine tune how we're going to test, what those results are going to look like, and what we're going to do if this does start to become another problem, where we are seeing hospitalized patients and that. So rest assured, we are looking at it. We are testing a lot of people. I will tell you, you're going to see the trailer at the south side of the annex for the rest of the week with the cases that we're seeing today. I'm willing to answer any questions that you have and talk through anything that you guys might want to.
8 new positives, do they know where they got it? Do you pretty much know where they got it?
The positives today, a lot of the positives that we did get today have came from contact tracing from Monday. Because if you remember on Monday, we did see, I think, 3 or 4 positive cases pop up Monday. Wednesday's 2 days after those, so we're seeing the positives from those. We're getting to a point where some of them have family members or friends that work in Johnson County, some of the bigger industries up there. The assumption is a lot of those are coming from there, but we are getting to a point where some of these are looking to be more community spread and going to be harder to find.
Ultimately, the nursing home facilities, that will be their decision whether, it's just like a restaurant. You can tell a restaurant you can open, but that doesn't mean they're going to.
And that's,
Ultimately, it's their decision. So even if we say fine and they say no, you can't make them. And which is, to me, I think it's great that I know it's hard on families, but.
well, one of the things with the nursing facilities we've talked about is social distancing. One of the things you haven't seen your loved ones for now going on 3 or 4 months, the first thing you're going to want to do when you see them is to hug them, to touch them, to show them some kind of a love. And with that, that's not what you want. So, some of them are talking about policing where you have a room, but, the loved one's going to have to sit 6 foot away, mask on everybody. And I think we're in a different world than we were, and people are going to have to respect and understand that. But I do know I get a lot of phone calls of people that are upset that they don't get to see their loved ones too. So there's going to have to be a happy medium throughout this plan. Any questions?
Like it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you, Nick, for your work.
Casey? All right. Sheriff?
I'll just give you an update as far as district court, their way that they've reopened. That does, it's added a little bit of extra work to our court security staff because they're going in one side of the building, and instead of that being the entrance and exit, now they're exiting through other doors. So we're monitoring that. Still doing a lot of the proceedings through Zoom, and they broadcast those through YouTube as well. So they still have all the legal parameters that are covered there. Most of our felony docket, though, we're still bringing inmates that are in custody do have to personally appear and not be through Zoom. We're still taking all the precautions that we need to, so our jail staff still wears masks anytime that they're have contact with inmates. All of the inmates, that when they're taken to court, we have disposable masks for them. Those were provided at no charge to us through a cooperation through the National Sheriff's Association and Under Armour. They made disposable masks for us, and so those are what we are using currently, and we have more that are coming. We're just anticipating. We don't know how long this will go on, so we're anticipating that a few months down the road we're going to need more. So we already have those on the way. Other than that, our operations are pretty much getting back to as normal as possible. I know during public comments there was also some concern that the Board of Commissioners were not meeting and having the meetings that normally we would. I just wanted to publicly acknowledge this board has had more meetings through COVID, and I'm part of a lot of those. So the public doesn't see a lot of what's going on, but what has happened and the response that we have with the county didn't just happen by chance, and I just wanted to acknowledge the work that the board has done. And particularly, Chair Waymire, I do a lot of meetings through Zoom, and they're not always easy. And but you've done a very effective job keeping the county business going in that environment. I know IT has helped with that a lot, but I know there have been a lot more meetings going on with this than the public sees, but they don't typically know that and don't have a reason to know that. But if those weren't happening, they would definitely know that they weren't happening, because things wouldn't be going the way that they are. So I just wanted to publicly acknowledge the work that has been done and the cooperation. So with that, if anyone has any questions for me, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Kind of you. Paul, anything from FCDC?
Yeah.
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
As I like to say, even with our issues, it's a great day to live in Franklin County, so thanks for your leadership. I want to touch real quick. Ian, you were talking about visiting there about the nursing homes. One of the issues from an industry standpoint is in the new bill that was passed at the state level, the nursing home industry was exempted from the liability protection that was provided through the bill for other health services. So part of the concern that your nursing homes are going to have is they are open to lawsuits if somebody should contract COVID-19, and so they have to be extremely careful because they're exposed, and unfortunately the legislature didn't give them any protection from frivolous lawsuits in that regard. So just an FYI on that as they make those decisions. A couple of things I want to report. A couple of weeks ago, you authorized us as a FCDC and the county staff to pursue a grant for low to moderate income support for small businesses, 1 to 50 people of an employee base. I'm happy to report that we have received a grant for the county for $132,000 for that purpose. So that's $132,000 of grant money. It's not a loan. That'll be going to the citizens of the county that qualify and make application and qualify for such funding. So it's good for anything from a sole proprietor up through 50 employees, as long as they meet the low to moderate income thresholds. I want to lift up a special appreciation and thanks to Janet and Casey for the work they did on putting this proposal together. I could not have done it without their help. They were exceptional. And in fact, Casey already has the access on the county webpage, so if folks are interested in making application, they can find that on the county webpage. We are not allowed to accept applications yet. We've got some paperwork that you're going to take care of today and that I need to send in, and the state needs to say yes. officially on the paperwork, but once we get that, then we'll be able to take applications. But I encourage people to go to the county website and look at that, and I'm certainly open to answering questions. If people pull down the application, they can also pick them up at my office. I'm happy to visit with people and help them through the process until we're able to accept applications. And then once we're able to, we'll send out notification, because it is a first-come, first-served basis. But I'm extremely excited and thankful for the support I've received in that process. I'm also just as proud and thankful. I thank you guys frequently for the support you give to FCDC. This grant alone, not counting the other things that FCDC works on, is a return of double of your investment in FCDC to the citizens of the county. So I feel like I can honestly say to you, your investment in FCDC has been pretty good. But it's also deeply appreciated. I also want to touch on the move that Derek had mentioned. I have been strongly in favor of that move and deeply appreciative of the county for the offer. I think it will increase efficiencies tremendously. It certainly has a budget impact, and we are very protective and very close stewards of our money. And this is a great opportunity for us, for which I'm extremely thankful for the county. I did advocate strongly to the board of FCDC that we accept that. As Derek reported, they have formally accepted the offer. And so now we'll just work through the details and the timelines, and I look forward to making that move. But I do want to express my appreciation on behalf of the board and FCDC for the opportunity you've presented to us. And it will certainly benefit the county in the long term. After that, I'm open for any questions.
I don't have a question, I just want to make a comment. I think that this move is not only a good move for FCDC, but I think having Paul working with our people on a regular basis is definitely going to benefit us in the long run. I want to thank you for going through the effort to get that grant, not throwing anybody under the bus, but I'm not sure that always in the past we'd have had even the effort to get that. And that's kind of went beyond your duty, actually, I think, in my opinion, to go out and do all the work you did to get that for so.
I mean, yeah, kudos to Franklin County, because the city of Ottawa got the same amount. And so when you're looking in the whole picture, we have a pretty good chunk of what is the whole amount that is available. And Saturday night, my husband and I picked up a meal from a restaurant that's not in the city limits. And he went in, picked it up, and came out and was sharing that they are in pretty, their straits are pretty dire at this point. And so I was able to call them back and go, hey, there's money available, so I'm sure they'll be in contact with you. So, I mean, it's great that we can say, hey, we can help you out.
Yeah, I'm excited that it's a grant, not a loan. These folks don't need more debt, they need help. And you're absolutely right, Diane. When this first came up, we worked closely in coordination with the city because we didn't want to cancel each other out. And so we really strategized on how can we maximize our requests for the overall county. Yeah. And so our request was for businesses in the county outside the city limits of Ottawa, and the city did the same thing for within the city limits. And the request the maximum you could request was $300,000, but what they ended up doing is once the application deadline hit, it looks like they decided they were going to fund everybody that had applied. And so when you looked at who got the funding, about 90% of us got $132,000. Mm-hmm. That was the largest, with the exception of, I think, 2 counties got a little bit more, but some other counties got less. So we were very pleased with the outcome.
I mean, you look at Douglas County, they didn't get any, the county or the city of Ottawa.
And Miami County didn't either. So we're excited about it. It's good news for the county.
Yeah. Awesome.
Paul, is there a cap on the amount people can request?
Yeah, it's based on the size of the business. So a sole proprietor, the maximum they can get is $10,000. And then from 2 to 5, I'm trying to remember my numbers, I believe it's $20,000. And then 6 to 50 is $30,000. What they have to do is bring in invoices of the expenditures for working capital. So they have to bring in the invoices to show those expenditures that they've had since March 1st. and then we'll reimburse them for those through that funding. So in the application process, they bring me the invoices, and then in the payout process, they have to provide proof of payment, so a copy of the check is what the state's requiring us to do. Otherwise, the county's on the hook if we don't properly document. So I assure you, I will properly document.
We're not necessarily, though, going to, because if we give $30,000 out, that's only benefiting for businesses. Are we going to kind of do what the state did and maybe, not as much, and so we can benefit more businesses?
That's the maximum, and they've got to be able to justify those expenses. Again, it's on a first-come, first-served. What we've done is really structured ours, because we have some flexibility in that, to where we can do hopefully more for the smaller folks, and that's really what we're seeing is the 1 to 6 are the industries. There's really not, maybe I can think of one industry in the county that's larger that may apply, but this is predominantly for your sole proprietors and 2 or 3, 4 or 5 employee, which is, to your point, a lot of the restaurants in the county.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, but the Board of Commissioners is the body that's ultimately going to have to approve these, right? So
That's
you
correct.
will all, you will be able to say yay or nay to, we will make recommendations to you, but that decision will ultimately fall in your lap. So if you don't like how it is distributed pursuant to our recommendations, then certainly you have the leeway to tell us to go back to the drawing board.
You're the final authority. That's exactly right.
And
Paul, I have another question. If a company's got payroll protection plan funding, can they apply for this also?
They cannot use the funds for the same purpose. So if they have a different expense that they did not utilize PPP money for, they can apply through this program. Now, if they receive the EIDL program, which was through the SBA, they are not eligible for this. In addition, and these are the state guidelines, not-for-profits are not eligible. Government agencies are not eligible. So it's really targeted for your sole proprietor, self-employed, small business, low to moderate. 51% of the employees impacted at the individual applicant need to meet the low to moderate income guidelines. Not all employees, but 51% or more. And most of our small businesses in Franklin County will meet those guidelines.
before we let Paul go, and it's already been said, but it's important to me that we give credit where credit is due. This has been a joint effort between FCDC and the county, and certainly Casey and Janet have been tremendous in supporting Paul throughout this process. But the fact of the matter is, we literally would not have these funds without Paul Bean. I didn't have the time to quarterback this. Janet doesn't have the time. Casey does not have the time. Without Paul, the citizens of the county would not have access to these funds. They just wouldn't. And so really appreciate him. And this is just the latest of many things that Paul's done that have been good for Franklin County. So excited to continue working with him in his role as FCDC director. So thank you, Paul.
One last question. I know the city was having trouble finding enough people to give these funds to. What happens if the same thing happens to the county?
They had funds available that were loans, and people were just loaned out. And so they actually have transferred those, made those into grants, and they're being able to give them out. But people are just,
they
no more
shifted
loans.
the money that they have, Roy, is a different funding mechanism from years ago, and it was a loan program. They have switched that to a grant program. I also sit on that committee, and we're starting to see a lot of applications. One of the conditions for the city to get the additional $132,000 is the existing fund that they have right now. They needed to get down to $10,000. And so they're granting and getting money out into the community so that they'll get the next 132. In our situation, to answer directly your question, what happens if we can't give it away? We do have a year. So those funds are available. This program's active until June of 2021. I fully anticipate that we won't go but 60 days. However, if we have a slowdown in requests and we have more funds, I'm kind of building a mental list of potential businesses I think could benefit from this. So if they don't apply, I will proactively go to them, kind of like what you just did. And I encourage you all to promote this. But if I don't have the line out the door to get the money away, I'll go find it, and we'll make sure it gets into the community. I'm not going to send it back to Topeka. I promise you that.
I'm sure we can all make phone calls.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
David?
Okay, Commissioners, a little bit more information on Iowa Terrace. As soon as we get the contracts in place, the day that those are signed is the official start date. We do have a late start date of August 10th, so they can start kind of any time in between there. Once they get started, they've got 30 days to complete the project. So hoping to get the contract in place right away so that we can get that work done here quick. We were able to open up Shawnee Road last Friday like we had planned to. That concrete work that High Plains did was terrific. I don't think we're going to have to worry about that structure for many years to come. We still have a little dirt work to do on either side of it to straighten out the channel and kind of put things back the way it was and take care of those things. That material that we kind of spread out was really, really wet and soggy, so we're allowing it to dry so that we can work with it, and then we'll bring in additional material also. We started on, I mentioned last week, the structure on Ohio Road south of Haskell. We started to work on that project this week. When we started working on it, we discovered that the situation was a little worse than we anticipated, or we thought it at first. So we have ordered a specialty pipe, another crossroad tube to replace that small wooden structure. And so we've put up some barricades. We've talked to the landowner. It's still, as long as there's not big equipment going across it, it's still okay. But we've had to go to Plan B, so to speak, to make this a little safer. Once the pipe comes in, it'll take us about a day to tear everything out and put it back in. So we'll wait till that person goes to work, and then we'll get in there and do the work, and it should be fine by the time they get home in the afternoon. Additionally, since last week's meeting, we've hauled rock to 5 of the 9 blade districts. We've been cleaning culverts and ditches and spots in multiple locations, Tennessee and Finney, Texas south of Jackson, intersection of Texas and Cloud, Reno just east of Oregon, and Stafford east of Vermont. These are just a few of the locations that we've been. We've got our folks stretched out all over the county. In addition to that, for most of the last 2 weeks, we've had two blade operators teaming up to work on ditches and roads in the District 405, which is the area south of Pomona. Next week, we plan to be down in District 408, which is kind of the south central district, doing the same thing. We'll have a couple of blade operators, and they will attack these roads in these situations together. We've gone out, and this week we're mowing all those locations so we can try to keep from dragging so much vegetation into the road and those sorts of things. So we continue to do ditching projects. I doubt very seriously that we have a very robust road rebuilding program this summer, simply because of all the other work that was generated last year during the floods, trying to get the ditches and culverts cleaned up so that we're prepared. Additionally, last week I mentioned that our guys were fabricating a culvert cleaner. We're testing that today, so as soon as I leave here, I'm headed out to kind of see how that's going. Yeah, that's all I've got.
Sounds good. Janet?
So as Derek said, I'm working a lot on budgets, but as all of you guys probably saw, you received a mailer in your box this week from the county election office. Don has it right there. Casey put out a message on Facebook notifying people about that, just letting them know the particulars about it. And we did have some questions on there. I did respond to a couple people last night about the mailer. And one citizen on there did inquire about the cost of the mailer and how that was funded. I just wanted to let you guys know that I did receive a substantial amount of funding through the Secretary of State's office that was directly related to the Federal CARES Act that was sent to each state's Secretary of State to determine how they saw best to manage election issues. So our Secretary of State divided that up based on voting population in each county, and we did receive a substantial amount of money. So I did utilize some of this to make this accessible to all voters. We saw in 2016 that many organizations sent these out to voters that they had particularly identified as their voters, but I didn't want it to just go to people who had been identified by a particular party or a particular organization. I wanted to make sure that all of the voters in Franklin County had the opportunity to do this if they wanted to. So I did not spend county dollars that were levied by our taxpayers in our county. I spent federal dollars that were allocated specifically to address COVID concerns, which I felt that this addressed a COVID concern. I can tell you, I also sent out a mailer using county tax dollars, which I normally would anyways, to my election workers, specifically identifying to them what we were doing for the polling locations, how we were trying to make them safer, and many of them have contacted me saying that they are still up in the air of whether they would work in August, and they definitely will not work in November because they have strong concerns about what the virus looks like in November. So that is definitely a concern, and we are working on getting our polling locations set up, equipped properly, set up with poll workers and personal protective equipment for my election workers. So again, when you do those things at the polling locations, if you go in August and November, a lot of that was paid for by federal dollars that we did not spend our local levied tax dollars on that. So I just wanted to address that today. And I would definitely be happy to talk to any of you guys or any of the public at any time about what we are doing to set up protections for voters. I want voting to be accessible to everyone, not just the few that people choose to send forms to or whatever. So we will have the advanced voting option, so you can send that back in the mail or drop it off at the courthouse, however you'd like to get it back to me. We will have early voting for 2 weeks in advance at the courthouse like we always do, and we're working on some changes to get that set up. And then we will also have all the polling locations open on Election Day.
Have everybody bring their own pens or have pens that
I
they
have
can
a
use and
substantial
then
number
with
of
them?
pens purchased already. I have well over 10,000 pens purchased already. And the Secretary of State's office is supposed to be sending us disposable styluses because, as you guys remember, we purchased the electronic poll books, which will require a stylus or your finger to sign the electronic poll book. So they are working on getting us styluses so that no one has to use the same one.
I did see that the state, one of the things they did get through that I think that the governor signed was that about $400,000 of the state's money from the federal government is to be put out to the local governments. Do you have any idea how they're going to divide that up?
I have not heard yet.
We need some of it. Can we figure out, make sure that we get some? would you?
Right,
All
absolutely. I will be watching that.
Thank you. Let's go to Commissioner comments and board reports. What do you have, Don?
Yeah, I know, going to Wellsville City meeting tonight. That's the first time I've been up here in 3 months. Now that we, got this up to 45 people and, practice what you preach, I guess, We've been asking everybody else to go by our guidelines, but felt we should go by them too. Only one other thing I might mention, I guess I'm the only one in this room that was even here when that road was closed out there. And I don't remember all the particulars. I'm glad David mentioned, I remember now the deal about Douglas County. Once you mentioned that, it's hard to remember everything that happened 18 years ago. But I do know that what brought it to the head out there was the cost the county was having to absorb for the trash pickup. And we had two KDH grants, if I remember right. One of them was $25,000 and one maybe $10,000 for them to come in there and clean up, and we had to pay for our share. And they told us, this is it, guys. We had it cleaned up twice. You're gonna do something or it's all on you from here forward. And so, I don't remember all particulars. In fact, I'm the only commissioner even left alive when this was done. So there's a lot, I think Larry probably is the only person in the county that had any dealings when this happened, maybe when he first started, and Larry so he'd be the only other person besides myself that even remember anything unless looking at documents. And a lot of times you can't draw from all of that. But I know it wasn't done to be crude to anybody or rude to anybody. I know it just had finally come to agreement with the landowners down there, and maybe there was some odd agreements that were made that you would never make today. I don't know, but I just know that it wasn't done on a whim. There's a lot of discussion for a lot of months, probably maybe a couple of years before it ever took place. So this is the first time I've heard anything in years one way or another on it, but it wasn't done to harm anybody or anything like that. It was done to just, I think the only reason the county maybe at first wanted a key for the ambulance or the sheriff in case they need to get down in there on that pretty good stretch through there, in case they need to get in there, somebody get hurt down there, farming or whatever, they wanted to be able to get in there. So a lot of things I don't remember about it, but I do. I'm glad you brought up the deal about Douglas County. That's probably something we'd never do today, but it did happen then, and it was a legal document. And that's it.
All right. Rick?
Haven't been to any meetings or anything since our last one. One comment I want to make, I think this needs to be said. We've thanked the people working on the COVID-19 several times, and that hasn't changed. The team at Derrick has put together. They all have other duties. You can see Janet's got a load now with the budget, with elections coming up, and still working on the COVID-19 team with so forth. But the one I want to mention, I think needs mentioned, a lot of the public don't see, is the hours that Derrick's putting in are amazing right now. I've called him numerous times about questions or things I wanted to bring up that he should have been out of the office and on his way home, and he's still in the office working most of the time. So I think I called him last night and I said, "Are you on your way home?" "No, I'm in the office." All of us have received emails from Derrick, all times of the night, things he's working on. Some of them's been close to midnight before. And then when we had the Zoom meetings, he emailed us all and told us if we had questions about the meeting that day, he'd be available from 6 o'clock in the morning up to the meeting time. I will tell you, I never called him at 6 o'clock in the morning. Because, I wasn't available at 6 o'clock in the morning. But anyway, I just wanted to say that the hours he's putting in right now are amazing, and I'm not sure when he's sleeping, but appreciate what you're doing. And I told him last night that I said, "Your overtime check this month's going to be amazing," and he just chuckled. So, but anyway, appreciate it because he is putting in a ton of hours right now, along with a lot of the other people that's dealing with their jobs, plus trying to deal with the COVID stuff too. So that's all I got.
All right, thank you. I am.
He's not sleeping because he's got a new baby, so he knows how to go without sleep. I did go have a chamber board meeting yesterday morning, and it was still by Zoom, and I think maybe possibly because John Cohen did it from his bed. He actually has some compressed discs in his back, and so he is pretty much bedridden at this time until they figure out what to do with him. But It was kind of interesting to listen to the community reports. Dr. Cobbs kind of gave us some different scenarios as far as what school may look like in the fall. Several different scenarios, probably the only one of which is going to be, it's not going to be the way it was. It's not going to be normal. It's not going to be the way it was. So whatever it is, it will look new. And again, Richard Neinstadt is still amazed at the sales tax numbers for the county have pretty much stayed pretty stable. So even though a lot of businesses have not been open, we are still, the revenue is still coming in for state. I guess people are staying home. And so when they say shop your county, they mean shop your county. Makes a difference. They have a business space that is available, that will be soon available above the chamber. I think that the most recent business that was up there was a computer repair business. So if anybody knows of anybody that looking for a small business space, they might contact the chamber. They are going to have 3 farmers markets this year at Legacy Square, the first one being on June 29th. Chamber coffees will be starting up fairly soon, maybe not to the same level as they were before, but they are considering that. And they are also thinking about having a legislative coffee now that the session is done, maybe by Zoom. They're still trying to work that out, how they're going to do that, so that if people have questions for our legislators, that they might have contact with them. Main Street has hired a new director. It's not public yet who it is, but they do have a person that they're excited about. And then they talked about, money available for businesses. So a lot of it is just we need to get the word out that there is money available. So if you need it, make sure to get hold of somebody. We were supposed to have a neighborhood revitalization meeting in April that was postponed, but I did get that information this last week, and there are 11 properties that are being considered for the neighborhood revitalization, and several of those are either major remodels or new structures going on vacant lots. So that's exciting that they're still building and we are still, putting money into the county. Courthouse painting. If you haven't been by there, take a look. And I'm glad we went with the color we did. I don't know if how it would look the other way, but it looks awesome. And so if you haven't had a chance to go by there and look, it really does spruce up the property. County employees, I just kudos to all of them that they have continued to operate all the way through COVID, have been able to provide services, whether they platooned or not, that we have, and that they've continued to obviously do what they were supposed to do, because we've had no cases of, as far as I know, any county employees that have been tested positive for COVID. So good job. I did do a radio spot for FDCDC for the Industry Appreciation Month, and Paul said it's been on the radio. And I did talk to a landowner this week, and it's somebody that I met out with David and Jeff Welton, and he wanted to come and talk to all of the commissioners, which I said, that is fine. But I'm not sure that if you come and talk to all the commissioners that you're going to accomplish what you want to accomplish, because, you can come talk to us, but we can't tell the roads department which projects are more important than the other ones. So we know of one project, but we don't know of, how many do you have? How many do you have open now?
There's close to 200.
Yeah, so, that this project is more important than the other 200 that they have. Or that they need to do this project even though, the weather's it's not a good time weather-wise to do it. So he did agree that he was not going to come, and, but, definitely, we want to hear your opinions, but we can't always, tell them to do something that which is not a good time to do so. Anyway, that's it. Thank you.
Roy?
I had a little difficulty this morning not saying my name first, then talking, like we've been doing for the last 2 months. It was kind of awkward coming in here today, but I'm glad we're back. I reiterate what Rick said about Derek and all the time he's been putting in and keeping us informed on a daily basis what's going on in the county. I do have a question of David about Mr. Barnes' situation. I need to refresh my memory on the road going north, going west from Nevada Terrace. Is that gated also?
Yes, but it's open at the other end. It's just gated right there at that, right off of Nevada Terrace.
Another question I have is, if the landowners want somebody to come back there, can they give them the key?
It's their land. We don't have control over, we have zero control over that.
So if Mr. Barnes approaches the landowners to get a key so he can go back there, that'd be perfectly fine, right?
Certainly.
That's all I have.
All right. Nothing else, we look to adjourn.
Make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We're adjourned.